We've been fed the same story for years, over and over until it felt like gospel. They told us that paying rent was just burning cash, money you'd never see again. Owning property? That was seen as genius, a golden ticket to passive income from a never-ending upward trend. This was the American dream, shrink-wrapped and sold to everyday people who poured their life savings into chasing real estate riches. But now, that dream has twisted into something out of a financial horror flick. Here in 2025, the harsh reality is this: the script has flipped, and not in a good way. An avalanche of new apartment buildings has collided with stagnant wages and tenant pushback, and the result? A landlord bloodbath. Across the country, asking rents have dropped for 25 months in a row, a streak that's rewriting the rulebook. In some areas, it's a steady drip, but in others, landlords are watching their finances bleed out fast. We're seeing a wave of new multifamily units flooding the market. Hundreds of thousands added just this year. It's the biggest surge we've seen since the chaos of the 2008 crash, second only to that historic collapse. But let's be clear, this isn't just some textbook case of supply versus demand. That's way too simplistic. Every city we're heading to has its own hidden trigger, a kind of poison pill that's speeding up the crash. These are the silent killers, pushing the market over the edge and locking landlords into a nightmare of non-stop losses. So buckle up, we're about to take you on a journey through the 10 U.S. cities where the rent market is absolutely imploding. Landlords are hemorrhaging millions, and just wait until you see which city took the #1 spot. It's jaw-dropping. It's a sun-soaked paradise, the kind of place everyone thought was untouchable, where prices only went one direction, up. But now that city's downfall is sounding the alarm for landlords nationwide. This isn't your average top 10 countdown. It's a wake-up call, a survival guide for anyone tied to rental real estate. If raw, unfiltered truth like this is your thing, smash that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming. All right, grab your gear. Let's hit the road and see where this crash is hitting hardest. Number 10. Charlotte, North Carolina. First stop on our journey, the Queen City itself, Charlotte. It's a place built on the foundation of high finance, crowned with a skyline that touches the clouds. From a distance, the city looks like a fortress of financial strength, all steel, glass, and success. But the closer you get, the cracks start to show, and the desperation is hard to miss. Landlords here took a massive gamble. Seeing the towering HQs of Bank of America and Wells Fargo, they assumed those six-figure banker paychecks would never stop flowing, so they kept building, again and again. Just in the first quarter of 2025, Charlotte added more than 4,700 new apartment units. That's over 3 times its usual pace. The consequence? Vacancy rates have exploded, now hovering around 12%. To put that into perspective, a healthy rental market usually sits closer to 5%. This isn't a slowdown, it's a hemorrhage. And landlords are scrambling to stop the bleeding. Today, nearly 46% of listings are offering rental concessions. That's nearly half the market. We're talking multiple months of free rent, no application fees, and just about any perk to get someone to sign. But the real problem isn't just overbuilding, it's a colossal miscalculation. Developers went all in on luxury housing, banking on a high-earning workforce that hasn't arrived in the numbers they expected. The median household income in Charlotte sits at roughly $78,438. That doesn't stretch far enough to comfortably afford $1,700 a month for a one-bedroom in a brand-new building. Picture it, a mom-and-pop landlord who picked up a fourplex back in 2022, now handing out Starbucks gift cards just to convince a 25-year-old data analyst to come take a tour. Charlotte may be known as the hometown of Billy Graham, but these days the only prayers being whispered are from landlords hoping for a miracle. The city built a luxury lifestyle on modest means, and now the hangover is hitting hard. So let me ask you this, is your city falling into the same trap? Are developers filling the skyline with luxury apartments while the locals struggle to keep up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you're seeing where you live. Number 9. Nashville, Tennessee. Leaving behind Charlotte's banking towers, we head west into the soul of country music, Nashville, the legendary music city. But over the last 5 years, this wasn't just a hotspot for artists, it became a magnet for fast money dreamers. Thousands of rookie investors, hyped up by social media real estate gurus, flooded in. They snatched up condos, townhomes, anything with 4 walls, all chasing one thing: Airbnb gold. Every weekend brought in bachelorette parties, tourists, and cash, or at least that was the fantasy. But the music has faded, and the hangover? Brutal. Right now, Nashville is drowning in a tidal wave of vacant apartments. As of May 2025, the city's median asking rent had dropped 3.4% compared to last year, and that freefall has continued for 15 straight months. This isn't a gentle correction, it's a full-blown rout. Vacancy rates have surged to a 20-year high, triggering a fierce price war among landlords. Over half of the rental listings in town now come with incentives: free rent, waived deposits, anything to sweeten the deal. So what went wrong? What took down the cash cow? It was the perfect storm. First, there's been an overwhelming wave of new construction, a record-breaking 12,000 units added in just the last year. Too many listings, not enough guests, and tighter city regulations have left former Airbnb hosts scrambling. Now, they're flooding the long-term rental market, adding even more pressure to an already oversaturated system. Picture this: a guy who bought 2 sleek condos in the Gulch back in 2022, probably boasting about his passive income empire. Today, he's up against a brand new 35-story luxury tower right down the block, and it's offering 3 months rent-free. His phone's gone silent, and his bank account's bleeding. In a city built on heartbreak ballads, landlords are now singing the realest blues. Nashville is a textbook example of what happens when hype outpaces reality. The party always ends, and sometimes the crash is louder than the celebration ever was. So here's the question: is the Airbnb gold rush turning into a full-scale bust where you live too? Let us know in the comments. Number 8. Denver, Colorado. We're heading further west now, climbing into the heights of the Rocky Mountains. Next up, Denver, the mile-high city. For the past decade, Denver was the ultimate lifestyle city, a magnet for those chasing craft beer, hiking trails, and scenic mountain views. And landlords, they capitalized hard, driving rents sky-high while the demand poured in. They believed the good times would keep rolling, but they miscalculated badly. Now, up in the thin air, landlords are gasping. Median rents in Denver have taken a sharp dive, with reports showing year-over-year drops of more than 9% for both 1- and 2-bedroom units. What's behind the fall? An avalanche of new inventory. Over the past 12 months, the Denver metro has added around 21,000 new apartments, a 5% surge in total rental supply. That flood of availability has pushed vacancy rates to a 15-year high, now sitting at 7%. The result? A fierce rental price war. Desperate landlords are throwing out deals left and right. In fact, a jaw-dropping 67% of all listings in Denver now come with move-in concessions. But here's the deeper issue. It's not just the overbuilding. Denver has hit a brutal affordability wall. The very lifestyle that once attracted transplants from all over, it's now financially out of reach. The median household income in Denver is about $91,700. But once you factor in taxes and the soaring cost of living, there's barely enough left to cover average rent, currently around $1,680 for a 1-bedroom. The numbers just don't line up anymore. Denver may be famous for its stunning mountain views, but for many residents, the only thing they're seeing is their bank account draining to zero. You'll see folks riding $5,000 mountain bikes, strapped to SUVs they can't even afford to fill with gas. It's turned into a paradise trap, a city so beautiful yet so unaffordable that only the wealthy can truly enjoy it. Meanwhile, the workers who keep the city running are being priced right out. So here's the hard question. Is your city doing the same thing? Are you paying some invisible mountain tax or sunshine premium that's becoming impossible to live with? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Number 7. Atlanta, Georgia. We're heading south now, straight into the sticky heat of the Deep South. Welcome to Atlanta, the crown jewel of the New South, a city long viewed as an unstoppable growth machine. With booming sectors in film, tech, and logistics, the city looked like a gold mine. Investors took one look and went wild. They didn't just build, they unleashed a frenzy of construction, planting high-rise after high-rise like trees in a glass and steel forest. They assumed there'd be an endless stream of well-paid renters lining up to move in. But now that forest stands half-empty, and landlords are wandering through it, searching for tenants. The overbuilding here is on a scale that's hard to wrap your head around. By the end of 2025, Atlanta is set to deliver over 17,500 new apartments. That flood of supply has thrown the rental market into a nosedive. Rents have tumbled, with some reports showing a jaw-dropping 13.6% drop from the peak. Meanwhile, the vacancy rate has more than doubled in recent years, now sitting at 12.1%, a clear sign the market is oversaturated. But what's really to blame, at the root of it all, is old-school speculative mania. Fueled by cheap borrowing and blind belief in Atlanta's endless boom, developers went full throttle. They pumped out tens of thousands of luxury units, priced for a renter pool that doesn't exist in the numbers they hoped for. The reality, the city's median household income is around $81,938, and that simply can't sustain the premium prices these landlords are demanding. Picture a small-time investor who picked up a duplex in Kirkwood back in 2022, thinking its proximity to the Beltline made him a genius. Today, he's battling with 3 freshly built towers, offering 2 months of free rent and 0 amenity fees. He's losing badly. Atlanta might be known for gridlock traffic, But right now, the only thing moving slower than cars on the connector is the city's rental inventory. Atlanta has become a case study in what happens when greed and herd mentality collide, the so-called boom. It was smoke and mirrors. So now I want to hear from you. Take a look around your own neighborhood. Are developers building for real, working families, or are they catering to some fantasy demographic that hasn't shown up? Drop your experience in the comments. Let's talk. Number 6. Boise, Idaho. Buckle up. We're heading north to a city that not long ago topped every best places to live list in the country. Boise, Idaho. Once the shining star of the remote work revolution. During the pandemic, it became ground zero for the Zoomtown surge. People cashed out of expensive markets like California and Seattle, using that sky-high equity to snag a piece of the so-called Idaho dream. Investors weren't far behind, convinced they had found the next gold mine. But the boom didn't last. That dream has now turned into a financial trap, and the numbers paint a painful picture. In Q1 of 2025, Boise's average apartment rent dropped about 4.8% year over year, and that's on top of previous declines. While the city's overall vacancy rate still appears modest, that's only because landlords are slashing prices just to keep units occupied. Meanwhile, new buildings keep popping up with 2,474 more apartment units still under construction as of mid-2025. So, what's the hidden toxin in Boise's real estate cocktail? It's something we're calling the Great Reversal. The remote work fantasy is unraveling. Companies are calling their employees back to the office, and the very people who once fueled Boise's rise are now being forced to retreat. According to a recent Redfine report, return-to-office mandates have become a leading cause of home sales, with many Boise transplants having no choice but to sell, sometimes at a loss, to head back to corporate HQs. Picture a tech employee who bought a house and a rental property here in 2022, feeling like he'd made it. Now his manager at Amazon is telling him, be in the Seattle office 3 days a week, or you're done. Suddenly he's scrambling to sell his home and offload that rental into a market flooded with other landlords who made the exact same gamble. Boise might be famous for potatoes, but right now it feels like there are more panicked landlords than tubers. This city wasn't built on long-term fundamentals, it was inflated by a once-in-a-lifetime global event. And now that life is returning to normal, gravity is doing what it always does. So here's the real question. Is the remote work dream quietly dying where you are too? Are you or people you know being told to come back to the office, even if it means turning your whole life upside down? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear what's happening on the ground. Number 5. Jacksonville, Florida. We're cutting back across the country to the Sunshine State, but don't expect palm trees and luxury beach condos. We're heading to Jacksonville, a massive port city that was sold as Florida's last affordable frontier. But that promise, it turned out to be smoke and mirrors. And now the crash is coming in hard. The rental market here is taking a beating. Asking rents in Jacksonville have dropped significantly, with some reports showing a 6% year-over-year decline. Landlords are panicking. An oncoming wave of new construction is set to dump over 8,000 new units into the market, driving the vacancy rate to a painful 13.2%. But that's just the surface damage. The real danger lurking underneath? It's not a shiny new high-rise, it's a piece of paper, the insurance policy. Florida's insurance market is in free fall, and Jacksonville is caught right in the middle of it. Skyrocketing insurance premiums have already slashed multifamily property values by nearly 10%, specifically a 9.6% drop. While rent prices are sliding, insurance costs for landlords are exploding, jumping an insane 61.8%. Picture the local investor who picked up a rental near the St. Johns River, thinking he'd secured a cash-flowing machine. Instead, he's holding a ticking time bomb. His rental income is shrinking, and his insurance bill has soared so high that it's wiped out every bit of profit. He's not making money. He's paying to be a landlord. Jacksonville is sending a loud warning to investors everywhere. The price tag on a property doesn't tell the whole story. If your operating costs, things like insurance and taxes, spiral out of control, your investment can quickly become a money pit. So here's the hard question. Are hidden costs like insurance quietly draining your finances? Is your property or even your own home becoming a black hole that eats more than it gives? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about the real costs no one warns you about. Number 4. Phoenix, Arizona. We're heading straight into the furnace. Welcome to Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun. This desert megacity was once ground zero for one of the wildest real estate frenzies in the country. Investors were throwing money at it like it was the last golden opportunity on Earth. They believed the boom would never end, but they couldn't have been more wrong. These days, the heat isn't just coming from the Arizona sun, it's radiating off the financial statements of landlords who are watching their investments go up in flames. Phoenix's rental market is being crushed under the weight of massive overbuilding. In just the last year, developers have unleashed over 23,000 brand new apartment units into the metro. That tidal wave of supply has driven the vacancy rate sky high, now sitting at a punishing 12.1%, and with too many units and not enough tenants, rents are collapsing. Recent numbers show one-bedroom prices have dropped as much as 6.9% year over year. But what's the deeper issue here? It's not just the endless row of shiny new buildings. It's ego. Developers built for a fantasy version of Phoenix. Luxury, high-end Class A apartments targeted at six-figure tech workers. The problem? That workforce doesn't exist at scale. Phoenix's median household income is just around $77,041. The math was never going to work. Now landlords are scrambling, slashing prices and piling on perks. More than half of all rental communities are offering steep concessions, often 6 to 8 weeks of free rent just to get people in the door. Imagine the developer who opened a glossy new complex in Tempe. Now he's staring out over an empty pool deck, handing out gift cards and rent discounts, hoping someone will show up, even though the local paycheck can't cover the asking rent. Phoenix has become a case study in what happens when greed overshadows reality. They built a mirage, and now the brutal truth of the desert is closing in. This isn't just Phoenix's problem. It's a red flag for cities everywhere. Ask yourself, are the buildings going up in your city actually meant for the people who live there, or are they being built for some imaginary ultra-rich tenant who may never come? Let me know what you're seeing where you are. Number 3. Orlando, Florida. We're heading inland now, straight into the sticky center of America's fantasy land, Orlando. The city that Disney built. For decades, it felt like a landlord's dream. A constant flow of tourists meant there was always demand for short and long-term rentals. But that guarantee has officially expired. Today, the Magic Kingdom is starting to look more like a financial minefield. The numbers coming out of Orlando are rough. Median rents are sliding, with some reports showing a year-over-year drop of around 3.2%. And that's no coincidence. It's the direct result of a tidal wave of new construction flooding the market. In 2025 alone, Orlando is expected to add an eye-popping 11,481 new apartment units. That's not helping. It's throwing gasoline on an already out-of-control fire. But the deeper problem here goes beyond oversupply. Orlando's market is being crushed by a dangerous double threat. First, the city's low-wage tourism economy is incredibly fragile. When a downturn hits, service jobs disappear overnight, and with them go rent payments. Second, landlords are getting hammered by the state's insurance crisis. While rent prices are falling, insurance premiums for multifamily properties have jumped by a brutal 18.5%. Picture a guy who bought a modest rental condo near International Drive. Now he's getting less rent because his tenant just had their theme park hours slashed. Meanwhile, his insurance bill has nearly doubled. He's bleeding from both ends. Welcome to the happiest place on earth, where investors are now financially trapped. Orlando is a textbook example of what happens when a city builds its entire economy around a single shaky industry. It's like stacking your future on a souvenir snow globe. It looks pretty, but one wrong shake and it all comes crashing down. So here's the question. Is your city depending too heavily on just one industry to stay afloat? And if that one pillar gives out, what's the backup plan? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk real risk. Number 2. Austin, Texas. Next stop, the one-time crown jewel of America's boom towns, Austin, Texas. A city that became a verb, a living symbol of the Silicon Valley exodus. For years it felt untouchable, as if the basic laws of economics simply didn't apply here. But now, gravity has come roaring back, and it's hitting Austin like a sledgehammer. The city's rental market has gone from red-hot to absolute meltdown. Rents for a standard two-bedroom have plunged from their peak of $1,726 in August 2022 to just $1,025 by mid-2025, a jaw-dropping 17.4% crash. And this isn't random. It's the result of one of the most reckless building sprees in the entire nation. After pumping out a record 31,000 new units in 2024 alone, Austin's vacancy rate has exploded, with some estimates pushing as high as 14.9%. That makes it one of the emptiest rental markets in America. So what went wrong? What poisoned the once unkillable Austin boom? It was delusion, pure collective euphoria. Austin started believing its own hype. Developers and investors gambled everything on a never-ending wave of six-figure tech workers. But the tech bubble popped, and the work from anywhere generation, they're being pulled back to corporate hubs in California and New York. The very tenants these shiny towers were built for are vanishing. Picture the landlord who paid a sky-high premium for a luxury condo overlooking Lady Bird Lake. He probably imagined a Google engineer fighting to rent it. Instead, it's sitting empty, Another ghost unit in a skyline full of them. He's cutting rent month after month, just trying to stop the financial bleeding. The so-called live music capital of the world is now eerily quiet, the soundtrack replaced by the silence of overpriced apartments sitting vacant. Austin has become the ultimate cautionary tale of what happens when a city bets everything on one volatile industry. The boom was a sugar rush, and now comes the crash. So here's the scary question. Has your city fallen into the same trap? Has it become a one-note economy, dangerously dependent on a single engine of growth? And if that engine sputters, what happens next? Number 1. Miami, Florida. And here we are, the final stop on our journey. Welcome to Miami, the magic city, the sparkling crown jewel of American luxury real estate. For years, this wasn't just a hot market, it was a belief system. Investors from around the world funneled billions into Miami, convinced it was untouchable, recession-proof, bubble-proof, even gravity-proof. But that belief is crumbling fast. Miami earns the number 1 spot on our list, not just because of the scale of the crash, but because the very future of the city is in question. Let's start with what's visible. The overbuilding here is nothing short of extreme. In 2025 alone, Miami is expected to add over 15,600 new apartment units, placing it 7th in the nation for new development. This flood of new supply has rocked the rental market. As of May 2025, median rents have fallen 6.2% year over year, and the vacancy rate has jumped to 7.8%. But that's just a surface wound. The deeper crisis? It's not about apartments, it's about water. Miami is literally sinking. Sea levels are rising fast. One major study predicts that ocean levels could rise more than 6 feet by 2050, putting entire neighborhoods underwater. This isn't some far-off climate scenario. It's already happening. Sunny day flooding is now a regular occurrence. Streets flood when there's not a cloud in sight, and the insurance industry has taken notice and taken action. In Florida, insurance premiums for multifamily properties have skyrocketed by 150% over the past 2 years. Landlords aren't just dealing with falling rents. Their largest expense, insurance, is exploding, wiping out their bottom line. Picture a property owner in Brickell, renting out a gorgeous ocean view condo. Now imagine their insurance carrier has just blacklisted the entire building due to future flood risk. That once prized asset, it's now a liability they can't sell, can't profit from, and can't escape. Miami has become a monument to unchecked optimism, a city built on sand, speculation, and denial. But nature doesn't negotiate. No amount of foreign capital can stop the ocean, and that brings us to the biggest, scariest question of all. As a nation, are we still pretending that climate risk isn't already baked into our real estate markets? And what happens when investors are finally forced to reckon with the truth? So there you have it, from the glass towers of Charlotte to the flooded streets of Miami, one message echoes loud and clear: the landlord gold rush is over. This isn't a soft landing, this is a full-scale reckoning. But this road trip wasn't meant to panic you, it was meant to prepare you. Because in a world full of financial noise, information is your only shield. Don't fall for the hype, follow the data, protect your capital. And I'll leave you with one last critical question. What do you believe is the single biggest threat to the American housing market that no one's talking about? Let's hear it in the comments.